Hello, my name is Felicia Sanders, and today we will be taking an in-depth look at the evolution of science fiction within the film industry. The very aspect of science fiction has endured for hundreds of years. It's a genre that has its roots within literature, but at the dawn of the 20th century has found itself debuting on the brand new storytelling medium of film. Early sci-fi films during the silent film era were limited to movie pictures with no sound, ran a maximum of 20 minutes in duration, and were depicted as lighthearted and comical. The first sci-fi film to be made was A Trip to the Moon in 1902, which was directed by George Méliès. The creation of the talkies in the late 1920s made sound possible within films and gave new meaning to the sci-fi genre. As a result of the Great Depression in the 1930s, sci-fi mixed with the genre of both fantasy and horror to create a mental escape for Americans from their problems. This resulted in films such as Just Imagine, The Wizard of Oz, and Frankenstein. With America's entry into World War II in 1941, sci-fi began to take on a more heroic and patriotic tone. This can be seen with film series such as Flash Gordon and The Adventure of Buck Rogers. Many sci-fi films of this era also double as war propaganda. The start of the Cold War and increasing sightings of UFOs in the 1940s gave new meaning to sci-fi films of the 1950s, with films such as Destination Moon signifying the oncoming space race between America and the Soviet Union, while films such as War of the World, Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and The Day the Earth Stood Still focused on alien invasions. The 1960s saw a drop in the sci-fi films and a rise in sci-fi television programs with shows such as Star Trek, Doctor Who, The Twilight Zone, and Lost in Space, created by the likes of Gene Roddenberry, Sidney Newman, Rod Serling, and Irving Allen. These shows had high political overtones that reflected the era's push for civil rights and feminism. Science fiction films experienced a glorious return in the 1970s with mega blockbusters such as Star Wars and Close Encounter of the Third Kind, directed by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Both men would go on to become popular figures within the genre. The 1980s saw the dawn of a rivalry between two popular science fiction franchises, Star Trek and Star Wars, with each making numerous films. Dystopia science fiction films such as Mad Max, Blade Runner, Terminator, and RoboCop also became popular during this period. The 1990s, with widespread use of the internet, coincides with internet themes science fiction films such as Total Recall and The Matrix. Disaster films also became popular during this era, with films such as Independence Day and Deep Impact. Science fiction films of the 21st century are taking a drastic departure from their predecessors and are depicting humanity as more of the enemy rather than the hero. This can be seen in films such as Avatar and Arrival. Science fiction sequels are also becoming popular in our present day society, with franchises such as Star Trek and Star Wars vowing to keep making movies well into the future.